and sounds. Like, this is another, like, shout out to the Foley artist on here.
Amen.
Who's like plopping and plunging and flopping and flunging and like whatever other weird
Squelching.
sounds. Like, this is like squelching 101. If you were like,
Squelchville.
how can I understand what squelching is? This film will.
Squelching.
It'll tell you.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for all things scary and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. My lenses are in my hands. I just didn't feel like taking them out.
Fair.
I got them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome. So today is going to be a fun day. I'm super excited to discuss this movie because it seems like everyone has been talking about this since it came out. Today we're talking about the 2024 satirical body horror film, The Substance. Dun, dun, dun. Cue all of the horrible body things that we all hate just meshed into this movie, which is fantastic. That's what we love. Also, we love movies being written, directed, and co-edited and co-produced by females.
Amen.
Coralie Fargette. And it stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. So very excited to discuss The Substance. If you have not watched this, press pause because you've got to watch this.
Please
before
watch
you
it.
listen to us.
You should watch it.
Yeah,
You
I
should
think it's
absolutely
imperative.
watch it. Yes, very important that you watch this first.
It's very, very important. And then come back and listen to us, see if you agree with our thoughts on this. But Jamie, start us off with the trigger warnings, please.
I'm gonna start with shrimp. Trigger warning for shrimp.
Fair. Excellent start.
For like disgusting eating. I mean, this is also, like you mentioned, body horror. So a lot of secreting of things, body deterioration, like parts looking janky,
Real mangled.
Yeah, flesh monsters.
Yeah, flesh monsters. Lots of needles. If you don't like needles, boy oh boy, the huge needle warning for you of a variety.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Us.
Pus. Yeah.
Ugh,
Ew.
men being misogynist.
Just truly men being the worst of the worst.
The worst.
Yeah, like parts coming out of other parts, mysterious liquids. I mean, aging, like as a theme.
Blood.
So much
Buckets
viscera.
of blood.
Buckets.
Mutations.
Yes.
Like lots of, I mean, I said shrimp, but like other like pretty grotesque food appearances and sounds. Like, this is another, like, shout out to the Foley artist on here.
Amen.
Who's like plopping and plunging and flopping and flunging and like whatever other weird
Squelching.
sounds. Like, this is like squelching 101. If you were like,
Squelchville.
how can I understand what squelching is? This film will.
Squelching.
It'll tell you.
Sure will.
Boy.
Yeah, I feel like that's everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Most of the things. A lot of things.
A lot of things. Just know if you're not a body horror person, this might not be for
might
you.
make you squeamish.
Yeah, lot squeamish. And anyway, we'll get into it because there was just so many things that creeped me out in the best possible way. But before we get into everything, producer Brian, please give us some words.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Hi, YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like us or this is your first time, you can follow us in other places like at Talk Horror Pod on all social media. So you can find us on things like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Find us on all of those social media platforms, and we will be covering. There's so much coming out this year, like already, and can keep going. And so we're going to be covering a lot of stuff on there, not just the stuff we do on here too. So follow us there, and we will make sure that you're having fun with horror content all year round. That's what I have to say about that.
I love it. And yeah, I mean, I love how this year in general, like you said, Brian, a lot of stuff is coming out.
Yeah.
They just saved the best for last, man. And I'm not mad at it because you know what? It got to us. So I'm happy.
It did. And there's still so much more from the past year that we have to all catch up on at some point. Like
exactly.
There's always so much like mainstream stuff too. It's not just like, but yeah, we got a lot to catch up on. But as a reminder, we do our best and most disappointing of the year in December. So definitely stay tuned for that one. I'm excited for. I'm fascinated to hear your top 10 once we kind of close out this year, because I just feel like the range of horror movies this year and subgenre range has been so wide, and I'm so fascinated to see kind of what floats to the top of your two lists. But you know, we'll get there. We still have this. We're gonna do Heretic on the podcast. We're gonna do Nosferatu in December for sure. So I'm super excited for all of that stuff. So that's in addition to all the other stuff we still need to watch. Like I haven't seen Strange Darling yet.
Oh God, yes.
I have a whole list of stuff. But anyway, back to you, Nikisha.
Yeah, that just reminded me when we did our Dracula Frankenstein for Halloween that I forgot that I have a Nosferatu plush that I should have brought out, but I'll bring it out when we.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When we record it. Yeah.
Saving it. Yes, I understand.
I'll save it. Fantastic. Well, have y'all guys watched anything?
Yeah. We saw Heretic, which we'll be covering on the podcast next week. We rewatched Evil Dead Rise for fun.
Oh yeah. Great movie.
Holds up.
That was like I don't remember why exactly you turned it on, but I feel like it was like a post-election like that it really was like it was a real comfort in a way that I wasn't expecting it to be in that moment, where like I really was like, I need to dissociate as much as possible and just like disconnect from reality and like sunk deep back into that world. And it was a really fun second watch.
Yeah, it was really fun. Also, it said leaving. We were just scrolling Netflix, and it said leaving soon. So I was like, you know what? Like, we haven't seen this in a while. We really like this movie. We don't have to think. I kind of wanted to see the cheese grater again. So yeah, we just popped on. Also, that title card.
I just was about to say,
oh, yeah.
It's just stellar. One of my top 10 of all time.
I think
title
so.
Cards.
Also, this we'll talk about. The Substance has a great title card too.
Same. That's on my. I just love how that's what we look for. Well, now that's what I look for too.
Yeah.
Just because you mention it all the time, Brian. Is like, okay, what's the title card looking like?
Yeah, it sets a tone. It sets a tone 100%, especially in horror movies, I find.
I agree.
And we also rewatched these non-horror Logan.
Oh yeah.
And we rewatched Everything Everywhere All
Everywhere.
At Once.
Oh man, and I cried again.
I need to watch it. I still haven't watched that.
Oh yeah.
Wait, really? Film. Oh man. If you have mommy issues, bring tissues.
Oh shit. Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah.
Noted.
But
love it.
Yeah, we've been very lucky to be able to like go out to the movies with people being able to just like family, you know, this or we'll talk about it in the Heretic episode, but that was just kind of an impromptu date night where plans didn't shake out, whatever it was, and we got to see Heretic, and that was a lot of fun, and excited to. I always get excited to go to the movies for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've just been a lot of rewatches. I think the comfort aspect is what we're looking for now, and
For sure.
and Shark Tank.
Oh yeah, then we got back into
Philip
Shark
Tank.
Tank.
Love Shark Tank. We hop back into the tank.
Yes. I watched Agatha all along. I finally like watched
Oh,
all of that. That was my comfort. For the
Yeah,
past
did you like
couple of
it?
Days. I loved it. I
Yeah.
thought it was great. I loved WandaVision. I'm not too heavy into the Marvel universe, but it felt like watching WandaVision was enough to get me
Yeah.
through Agatha. And yeah, and plus Patty LuPone. People say what you want to say about Patty. I love Patty. She's gonna be off the hinge, and I love it all the time. So love
good.
seeing her.
Wonderful. That episode is spectacular. This
Yeah.
episode 7 is amazing.
Yeah, it was gorgeous, and I liked that I didn't have to wait because it was already finished. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna binge this the
totally.
next couple of
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
days. So
Yeah, cool.
that's been fun. Great. Well, let's get into the substance because there's a lot to discuss, but we need a 2-minute plot summary from producer Brian.
What's the plot?
I'm ready for this. He
Yes.
said not ready at all.
Great.
He said unconvincingly. Okay.
Okay. So let's get 2 minutes. If my phone will open. Don't you know who I am? Okay. 2 minutes on the clock
Okay.
for you to tell us everything about the substance.
All right.
Ready? Ready, steady,
Yeah.
go.
Okay, so we start on a Hollywood Boulevard. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so Demi Moore plays Elizabeth. She is a movie star. We're supposed to believe, who is on a workout show that's very popular. It feels very old school. Anyway, she is fired. Dennis Quaid plays kind of like the station manager, the TV runs the channel. He's a disgusting misogynist man who eats shrimp. And he basically fires her because they want to go younger, and they have an open casting call. She gets into a car accident the day of her when she gets fired, and anyway, one of the nurses there gives her information about something called the substance. She ends up deciding to do it after watching the commercial that basically says you'll be younger. She goes and she picks up the substance in this very weird alleyway, essentially. And she ends up taking it, and there are a lot of different rules for the substance, which we'll get into. But essentially, she births out of her back a younger version of herself. But they're both one in the same, so they both share everything. So while this younger one is out, the older one is basically like at home, incapacitated, eating, like being fed nutrients. They have a week each, and they go back and forth. As you probably guessed, lots of things, the younger one just gets the job. She's the new star, and she just starts to run over her week, which starts to make the other one older and more decrepit and more mutated. And when they switch back, she still wants to go back to be the younger self because she can't, she's just getting more and more decrepit. Anyway, in the end, they both wake up at the same time because they run their course, and she's doing the New Year's Eve special. She's like this big popular star. Anyway, there's no more substance left. They cancel the subscription, but she has to do it. So she has a little bit left over. She takes it, and they birth a third, even more monstrous creature that is a combination of the two of them. That monster does herself up, goes to the New Year's Eve celebration, and ends up just like covering everyone in blood. It's just an absolute insanity bloodbath, like massacre. And she ends up just like turning into this puddle of goo and nothing. And she's just kind of all she is a forgotten legacy on the Hollywood star Walk of Fame on Hollywood Boulevard. the substance.
And that's the plot.
Yes, good job.
A little bit longer, I know, but
No, it's a lot in the best possible way, but also flies by so quickly. So let's get into it with our first segment, likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
Jamie, why don't you go first?
Sure. I fucking loved this movie.
Yay!
Oh my god. It was so good. Okay, can I just tell you what's going on in my brain right now?
Please, please.
It's literally like just bouncing around the same things over and over again. It's
Mhm.
thinking about this. It's still thinking about Smile 2 and Sky
Mhm.
Riley, and like all of those songs. And then I think about this, and I get that song, the Pump It Up song, stuck in my head. Don't you know? Pump it up, dun, 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 pump it up, dun, 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 pump it up. I'm like, oh my god, what is my brain is just like at some weird like club DJ set, and it won't stop.
A horror
This
DJ
movie-
set.
Yeah, a horror DJ set. This movie is so good, and it's interesting because Brian and I were talking about it while we were watching it, because this movie was long, but you don't feel the length of it like at
Yep.
all.
Agreed.
we rented it on Mubi.
Yes.
Just to be clear, we weren't like ruining other people's time in the movie theater. We did a
This was a
free
home watch.
We did a
Yeah.
7-day trial of Mubi, MUBI, which this is not sponsored, has some great movies on there.
Mhm.
So I did that trial to watch it at home. Totally worth it. Anyway, I just wanted to
Same.
put that out there.
Thank you, movie.
Thanks, Mubi.
Thanks,
But whatchamacallit, this movie, so the biggest thing about this is there's nothing like new about the story that we're getting in this movie at
Sure.
all. However, the way that it's presented is just so like obviously visceral because it's body horror, but like it's so engaging while also paying homage to like all of these other horror movies that they're like clearly relishing and love. But
Mhm.
like
I have a
man,
list when we want to go through that list.
Oh yeah, and
Oh,
my
gorgeous.
TikTok knows that I watched this movie because now it's giving me like shot for shot of like this was from The Substance, and here's like the movie that it's referencing.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've gotten a lot of those. I also got some very incredible Halloween costumes because this came out like right around Halloween time.
Mhm.
And people did some real incredible Eliza Sue
Yeah. Eliza Sue. Yeah.
Monstro Eliza Sue.
Yeah.
Really top tier. Or like anyone who's
Oh,
wearing
Elizabeth.
the yellow jacket.
Oh, so Eliza
No,
Sue?
like the monster.
The-
Like the actual
Oh,
monster.
Eliza Sue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've seen some of those costumes, and then anyone who's wearing a yellow coat that looks like Elizabeth, everyone's like Elizabeth Sparkle. So I'm just enjoying that like the internet is also really enjoying this movie right
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
and is
That's
serving
great.
me up all the content on it. So thank you. This movie,
This
like
movie?
Demi Moore, this movie on movie, Demi Moore is phenomenal in this. Like you can tell that she like fully threw herself, like this is like all I almost can't separate like Demi Moore from Elizabeth Sparkle. Like it's just like
Exactly.
she really was in this role, and I feel like part of it is like, I mean, you know, as a woman, it's like, yeah, how difficult is it for me to tap into this like, you know, idea that we are only to be perceived, and if we don't look a certain way, then like we are garbage, and that we have like internalized that, you know, patriarchal mindset that like there's only utility to being a woman, and like it is to please men. So like because that is our reality, I feel like, and like how some people like internalize that more than others, I feel like kind of getting into that headspace is like could be challenging, but also like, but I mean, I'm thinking about myself. It's like, oh, in some ways, like that feels kind of easy to get into because like that is just the reality that
Mhm.
I exist
Exactly.
within. But like, man, she just like is so self-loathing in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
And like, again, there's not a ton of like new things being presented in terms of like when we get information about the rules, and that like, you know, both Elizabeth and Sue are the same person, they are one, but they start to feel this like resentment towards one another. It just really speaks to like the self-loathing, and once
Yes.
there's like some element of that outside of yourself, that you can also like, you can hate that version of you and like separate it from you. Like that was really interesting, that like Elizabeth was able to have a physical embodiment of like what she hated so much, but it was also her, and like
Yes.
her own hatred of herself. That scene, there's a scene that like is so devastating, where right after the car accident, she's in the doctor's office and she just starts crying when the doctor's like, "You're fine. Everything's fine." Oh, also it was her birthday on that day, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah,
It's
it
her
was.
birthday the day
Uh-huh.
that she gets fired and that she gets into this car accident.
Yeah.
So she just starts crying, and like, oh my God, it just like truly breaks your heart, because there's a part of you that's like, did she just like want it to all end in that
Yep.
moment?
Uh-huh.
You know, like that, not like she's feeling so distraught that like her career is like reaching this end, and like because she's no longer, you know, being perceived as like young and beautiful anymore, that like that's just it. And then to hear like, no, you're fine, like now she
Like
has
you're
to
actually
continue.
healthy. Yeah, like she's a
Yeah.
healthy
Yeah.
human being.
Yeah,
That
well, that's the
juxtaposition
other
is
thing,
so
like, that
crazy.
she can't conceptualize that, like, no, everything's actually okay, and, like, you're totally fine, like, but that's not good enough, because that's
Right.
not, like, the idealized version of what she's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And again, like, fueled by, like, I mean, she does get fired and overhears that conversation from Dennis Quaid talking about, like, her getting old and all of that stuff, so, like, you know, it's reinforced. I feel like it's really interesting to see a character who has so much of that like internalized self-loathing and like, you know, misogyny, because I feel like it's hard to separate it when you're not hearing it externally. And so like,
Mhm.
because you have so many examples of like, even at the end with Sue, and like her teeth start falling out and she
Yeah.
runs into Dennis Quaid and all of the other executives, and they're like, "Smile," like really close in her face, and she like
Ugh.
closed mouth smiles.
Mhm.
It's just like all of these little, I mean, microaggressions, like for
Yes.
a woman, to like constantly belittle herself. All of those experiences that are external are validating like the internal thoughts, and vice versa. So it's like this endless cycle that you can't escape from when it's
Mhm.
just being reinforced everywhere. Anyway, that was like a very long-winded way of saying like it feels very
That's
real.
okay.
It is very real. And I appreciate the way that they like kind of like amplify it. It's like to the nth degree. So
And
it's like very over the top.
yeah, and just to add, you just talking about like how great Demi was in the role, because it is also like a reflection of her career in a sense,
Absolutely.
like her not being the ingenue anymore,
Yeah.
but she is such a big name and people know her, and then just to have
Totally.
this kind of like meta on top of meta of like Margaret is an up and coming like ingenue and whatever, and then just having that, I just think it just played so much into, like you said, Jamie, like the reality of the situation and what actresses do go through and women
Yeah.
go through in general. But
Yeah. No, absolutely. It like plays on itself in that way, and I think like it's smart to cast somebody in that role who there was like a part of me that was really thinking like, man, what like psychologically is like actually Demi Moore the actress going through, because you have it absolutely, and I'm curious like, you know, you're the actress here, Nikisha, like what does it feel like when you're looking for roles and like they're describing like certain characteristics that they're looking for, or you might think you're going for one thing but they're like, no, we really see you as this, and it's like not the thing that you were perceiving yourself as. Like, this is why I could never ever be in the career path that you're in, because like I do
Yeah.
not have like the psychological like fortitude to be able to handle that. And like I find it like really fascinating and impressive. And like obviously you do the work, you are in therapy, and like I truly don't know how anybody could do this without being in therapy. So like I'm just
Hands
curious, like
down.
how do you like how, I mean, I guess we could get into that for like brains, but like
Yeah.
that is the thing that I'm so curious about. Like how does Demi Moore like read this, say like, yes, I want to do this, but also it's like twofold of like, this also feels like you as a person. So how do you navigate something that feels so personal and
Right.
like walk away from this being like, I'm psychologically okay?
Right. It's like I'm fine with this, even though this is just playing into my real life. And so now the lines are crossed, it's
Yeah.
blurred. And as actors, it's like you have a sense of separating yourself from whatever character but when it's so closely related, then it is hard. And I really hope that she did have a lot of therapy, because even like the small amount of time that I've been into this industry, like I've already been typecast out of roles that they want 18-year-olds to play. Even though like people look at me and like I don't look like I'm 60 years old, but like there are certain
No,
roles
you
and
you
things.
don't.
I don't. But I'm definitely not I'm not the teenage. They're not asking me to play like they're not asking me to be in Six. And if they were to ask me to be in Six the musical, the only role is Seymour, because that's the oldest of the so that's the older track.
Interesting. That's
So
so
it's fascinating.
wild. That's wild. It's all fucked up and broken. That's
Yeah,
that's
fine.
what I think about all of that.
For sure.
Also, something else I like about this movie is like you cast two like very hot people as like your lead roles.
Yes.
However, this is like a weird thing to say, but like I don't think that this movie is sexy. And by that I mean that
Yeah.
like the way that we are like the voyeuristic way that we are observing both Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, like, and their bodies, and like the zoom ins on like their breasts and their butts and their abs and like all of their parts, like it's not sexy. It's I mean, it's very gross. And like it's so fascinating that like even that in and of itself feels body horror-y. Like just the weird close-ups of all of their parts and like the really aggressive like, aerobic dance moves that they're doing and stuff, and like throwing their bodies around in this like really aggressive, like I've never done any of these like Jane Fonda workouts, but like it just feels really intense and like just aggressive with
Denise
how
Austin.
they how they're moving. But yeah, it's like it's decidedly for me not sexy at all, which I'm like, yeah, you have these like two really hot beautiful people, like remarkable that now I'm just like completely turned off by like everything that's happening because of the way that you are, like the cinematography, and like I feel gross.
Well, the movie made it feel like dressed up meat market. Like it feels packaged as a product, as opposed like on purpose, obviously.
Yeah.
As opposed to like trying to sexualize these people. Like you've gone so far beyond that it literally just feels like marketing to a specific a group of people. And I thought that was really well done in general.
Yeah. No,
yeah, it definitely makes you feel uncomfortable.
But and then in terms of like the body, it's interesting too, because based on people's reactions, I had anticipated like even more grotesque body horror, and it wasn't as bad as like my, like, I don't know, expectations were. But that's not to say that it was like, easy peasy Elisa Sue squeezy.
Squelchy.
It's still very gross. But I feel like it was way more tolerable than some of the other body horror that we've seen.
For sure. I agree.
I mean, to me, the hardest things to watch were the needle going into the pussing back over and over again, and the teeth falling out. Like that like But like the ear falling off, like wasn't like it was like whoa,
No, that
what's
was
happening?
funny. That
But
made
like,
me laugh.
but the teeth falling out, like but that's
Yeah.
also a me thing where like I I don't want my teeth to fall out.
Sure.
But
That, and
yeah,
then when the nails come off, I
and the
hate
nail,
Oh,
always the
yeah,
nails
that
nails,
was
coming
yeah,
off.
for
gross.
sure, for
Mm-mm.
sure.
Oh, what about the leg movement when she's like trying to lift her knee?
Oh, the knee got me.
Oh,
The knee got me.
yes, yes,
But
That was
with
gross.
the other stuff like the sewing of the back and a lot of that genuinely made me lean in further to be like, wow, this is amazing. But then the other stuff you have like the knee was my least favorite probably.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the pussy back was my least favorite.
The pussy back,
Pussy
number one.
back.
Pussy backs.
Can't do it. Pussy backs.
Pussy back. Yeah, that was pretty gross. Good old pussy back.
Well,
Yeah, I think my other like really favorite thing was just that this is clearly like a love letter to a lot of other horror films, and was able to like kind of pull those references in without it didn't take away from the movie at all for me. It was like I see you other movies, and like I'm like doing something similar, but I'm also still doing something that is like original in my own thing, and felt like it was like that kind of made it. I feel like it then has audiences like take it really seriously as like a really solid horror film contender in a way.
Well, yeah. I also think that in addition to that, most of the movies that were referenced in this movie thematically match or are important to this one and give you that feeling, that vibe. And I think that because this movie, something that I think this movie is incredible at is it's incredibly vague. Like the world is very vague in terms of like there's no distinct time frame. She's just on a show and it's like they're one network. Like there are no agents, there are no managers. Like it's all just streamlined, but it's making a very specific point in this vague world. And it works completely. But that's why I like all these homages and tributes to other things, because it's because of our extensive horror knowledge. It's infusing a vibe and thematic meaning on certain things without having to do anything other than making the carpet and the shot look like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, or making the bathroom look like Psycho, or making 2001 A Space Odyssey look like the room where she gets the substance. Dorian Gray, between like her and the portrait behind her. You have Clockwork Orange vibes. You have Carrie at the end. Obviously, you have The Fly, Wild at Heart, Lost Highway, Vertigo. Like all of these things make us feel things, and if you paste it on top of what you're doing, it kind of double down on the meta, and that's why it really works for me. Outside in addition to what Jamie was just saying, in terms of like also like giving it a little bit more like a little bit more spice. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
no, that's a really good point, that like pulling all of those other references in like evokes their own feelings, and like tying it to this, it's like your emotional response to whatever's happening on screen is also like pulling it from those other experience or your experiences with those other medias. Yeah, but this is definitely a top of this year and like all time. It was just like a really rewarding watch.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, I agree. I'll piggyback off of that just because there's not much or any bad that I can say about this movie. Just some things that really stuck out to me were the soundtrack. I put that it kind of just reminded me of like Ari Aster in a sense of like how some things were orchestrated. It just gave me some of those vibes. I loved all of the intense close-ups that were happening. Especially the most devastating scene for me was when Demi was going to go out with her old classmate. And then she kept going back to the mirror and like
that was
trying to fix herself. Oh, Yes. Close-ups.
But yeah, Nikisha, for that, isn't it amazing how this movie is full body horror? There's some truly awkward, horrible stuff, and the most effective, truly like gut punch of the film is that.
Is that
Like because it's like I mean that's what I wrote that in my likes too. That scene is by far the most devastating in the whole movie.
yes? Just
You know, we always
ahead.
talk about we always talk about on this podcast like there's a moment in horror movies, and I for some reason like to use Creep as an example. There's always a moment in horror movies where the protagonist has a choice to leave or stay. And it doesn't matter if it's a haunted house movie or it's this type of body horror movie or whatever it is. There's always a moment where you can choose to leave or stay, and there's no obstacle at that point. Let's just say, and they choose to stay, and whether it is stupidity, a dumb teen in a slasher movie, or whether it is your own internal psyche, like in this movie, or whether it's like ambition, like in Creep, when Mark Duplass like gives him the option to leave, whatever it is, like that is the moment in this movie where if she could get over her own stuff and go out on a date with him, the movie would be over. You know what I mean? And like that, to me, that's why that moment is double down on the devastation.
Yes, because like you said, that we know in the audience, like if she were to go, the movie would be done, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
But you are fighting for her so bad to just like at least get out the door.
Yeah.
You know.
And those texts like keep building up.
Oh. But yeah, I thought that was so just devastating.
Like that guy can offer her everything she's looking for. The outside validation.
Yes.
The connection to her roots. You know, like even though it comes off as like this like weird fan, like at
stalkery.
first. Yeah. And I think that's done on purpose, obviously. But there's what's different between him and the neighbor? You know what I mean? Like perception, maybe. Like there's also one is genuine, one is not. But like I just find that fascinating, and like the very few men characters in this movie are used like a scalpel, like just so like sharp in terms of what they represent and who they are amongst all of these these characters in general.
Yeah, because like you said, Brian, I think that character, her classmate, offered her just connection in general.
Yeah,
because we don't see her with friends, we don't see her with family.
She's alone on her birthday at the bar.
Yeah, and so just even more so, I think for me than the outside validation, it was just having her connect with somebody.
Yeah, because
just
also
to kind of ground her. Yeah,
her apartment has this amazing view of downtown LA, or what's supposed to be downtown LA, but it's still on the outskirts. She's on the outside looking in.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like she's tapping on the glass. She's waiting for a window. And but like, you know, that's you know, but she's so removed, and she's just doesn't have that connection, and that you know, and her living room is huge. And her kitchen is tiny. Like I think the proportions of what were in there, you know, it all is there for symbolism, but also to give you a specific type of feeling. And I think it's just like immaculate in that way.
I love it. That apartment was gorgeous.
Not the film.
Where is that? Give me that.
Yeah, just the adjective.
But yeah, so love that scene. As Jamie pointed out, I love the close-ups. Also we mentioned the sound design, Foley artists, absolutely fantastic. They were working overtime, and I will say,
out to all the Foley artists of 2024. You're working hard.
You are working so hard, and I feel like I would have wanted to. I also watched this on Movie, but to watch this in a theater, I feel like I would have been blown away even more just because of the
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
design in like a
Mhm.
full theater and just I feel like that
Can
would
you
have been
imagine
stunning.
those squelches in Dolby and like
Ugh.
Yes.
you're like
Like in your
when the
ear
monster is putting
balls.
like her the earrings in and those squelches like
Oh yes. But yeah, I was like, this was probably stunning to see in theaters. But also I want to shout out the colors in this movie. There
Yeah.
was one scene, well, the very first time that she goes into the room to get the substance, and it's this gorgeous shot of the dark ass alley, and then the light coming from the room where she grabs the substance. Oh, that did me in. And so then you see all of that on the screen, and then it immediately just shoots to the light and she's in the room, and I just thought that cut was fantastic. I'm like, who?
So good.
The editor of this, Coraline, you know what you're doing, because it was beautiful, fantastic.
So good.
Yeah, the men in this, God, and Dennis, I mean, the perfect kind of villain in this, the grimy old smelly man, all of them who, you know, we're never talking about their features or them getting older, and they can just kind of be whoever they want to be, and it's like always just the focus on the women and their bodies. I just thought that was portrayed really well. The title card, as we were mentioning before,
oh man,
that was genius. The fact that the title card was just the video for the actual substance,
and the USB
gorgeous.
too, technically,
Yeah,
and the
like
USB,
getting thrown
yeah.
into the garbage.
Yeah,
Yes,
totally.
yes.
But it definitely. But I agree with you, Nikisha. Like, even though we saw the USB and was awesome, like the commercial felt like the title card.
Yes.
Also because the opening of this movie with the egg and then the Walk of Fame, Hollywood Walk of Fame stuff, like felt like the thesis for this movie. And the movie was going to prove that, and then it bookends it at the end. And I just like how that correlated directly with the actual commercial with the eggs and stuff like that.
Right. No, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's just because I love that it cut to the commercial being the full screen, so it just felt like that was the title card, like the substance. Like, here we are. Yeah, it's great. The idea, every time it said you can't escape from yourself, because the two are one. I also never watched I try not to watch a lot of trailers, mostly because I just want to be surprised when I see it.
Sure.
So I didn't realize that Margaret and Demi would be the same person. I thought that they would just be like, you know, oh, they found a younger person and it was Margaret. But the fact that it Margaret came from Demi, it was just like, oh, this is genius.
Yeah, my assumption was that she just transformed into her younger self before I saw this movie. I didn't realize that what this movie does, which is way better.
So like coming out of, it's just like, who thought of that? That was just so genius. And then you have to like keep the body and then nourish the body, and
But I think what's great is like, because we're rules people, that there's this, I know I didn't say this before, but like, I think the fact that there's both very clear rules about stuff, but also it's like incredibly vague, and there's not a lot of things that are explained, and it's just kind of like weirdly inferred. So even the fact that we weren't entirely sure, like plot wise, we have like, you know, Demi against Margaret and like what is actually happening, and then watching the movie, it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting her to like be the same person and like come out of her and then like share a consciousness,
right?
And so if we're talking about rules, just as a reminder to our listeners, we love rules.
Rules.
This basically only has 3 rules, where it's like activate, what are the other 2? I didn't remember the rules.
The activator, the food,
and then the swap or whatever, the switch.
Right, after 7 days, you have to.
Swap. And do I think I need more? I would need more instructions. Yes, absolutely. But I think the 2 things this movie does very well is, one, the visual storytelling in this movie is just like impeccable. And so I fully understand what they needed to do just based on the visuals that were presented to us, both on what they're doing and what the actual kits looked like. But also, to me, it also just says that like these women or Elizabeth wanted this so bad that she just intuitively knew what to do. And that's what there, to me, there are no plot holes in this. You know what I mean? Like, I think everything can be explained and is interesting and engaging. And even when they both wake up at the same time, when she injects the like killer stuff in her, like I didn't think twice about anything, because the rules were vague and specific at the same time, and like don't like this whole movie is, and I was totally on board for it.
No, I agree 1,000%, Brian, because when you see the packet and you see what the rules are, there's still so many things where I'm like, how did she know that she was supposed to like keep the other body?
Totally.
And how
like,
do you,
give me a QR code so I can watch the YouTube video.
Right. I agree. But it still didn't take away from, from the movie itself and what the base rules were, like, because you could still follow it in a sense. But I literally was thinking, like, how does she know that she has to do all these other things? And anyway, but yeah, the nails coming off, we already talked about the needles. I hate it, but I loved it at the same time. We also talked about you can't really tell like what year it is, and things are a little vague in that sense. Yeah, the creatures, loved all of the creatures. Eliza Sue, fantastic. Yeah, I just loved everything. And you already mentioned, I said the same thing about the blood at the end, as it reminded me of Carrie. And someone likened this to Malignant in the sense of like not knowing where it was going to go. And it felt really kind of serious and grounded at the beginning, but then when you get to all the absurd stuff, it didn't bother me that it was just so out there. And I don't know how they did that, but to make that connection for it to be something that is so realistic with beauty standards, to then get into like the absurdity of the monster, and maybe it's just also the commentary on the absurdity of beauty standards, which that's what it is. But I just loved how they crossed that line without it being like, what the fuck is happening now? I just thought they did a really good job of incorporating all of that and campy blood and monster stuff with what was going on.
So it's funny that you say that, because Jamie and I paused the movie. So when Sue and Elizabeth are fighting each other because they're both awake at the same time, Jamie and I paused the movie for like a bathroom break or to feed our son or whatever. I forget why, but there were still 40 minutes of the movie left, or 20 minutes. I don't know. There was a significant amount of time of the movie left, and any other movie, what we were watching, this final showdown between the two of them, would have been the third act. And then, but the fact that the movie keeps going and keeps elevating itself to heights that were totally earned and thematically still matching what the movie was trying to say, was pretty inspired and kind of a miracle in some ways, because even all the stuff with the Eliza Sue at the end, the monster, like, still worked for me. And I know that it's kind of divisive in general, like that last Carrie sequence and whatnot, but like, I mean, that was part of the joy and the fun of the movie, but also what makes this movie. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To me, the final absurdity is kind of what gives this movie its character, because of the choice that they made to do that. Because anything else would have been easy.
I agree. It definitely makes it stand out. And you can have the great use of the prosthetics and all of the monster makeup. I mean, because it was gorgeous. At first I thought it would be like her daydreaming in a sense, because it was just so wild that Eliza Sue like put on that demi face and walked in, and that man was like, "Oh, there you are. Come on, let's go."
So, fun fact about that scene is, in the score, some of the themes to Vertigo are playing at that time when she's getting dressed up. For our listeners, thematically, Vertigo is, spoiler alert, is about like this obsessed man who's trying to turn a woman into the woman that he loved and lost. It's way more than that. Like, that's That's not even half true.
Have some brandy. It'll make
Yeah,
you
have
feel
some brandy.
better.
Have some. It'll make you feel better. But so here she is trying to dress up like Sue would or Elizabeth would. Putting the earrings in the dress and trying to create an unrealistic standard of beauty for herself that the other ones would have done, similar to the way that Jimmy Stewart's character was obsessed with turning Kim Novak's character into, her another version of her. And again, that's the if you don't know the Vertigo score or Vertigo, it doesn't mean anything. But if you do, like I do, it really pulled me into the scene even more because I have emotional connection with what Vertigo is trying to do, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought it was excellent. And now I want to go back and see Jamie or Brian, if you come across those TikTok videos again, please send them my way of the shot for shots. Because I didn't even think about that as I've seen Carrie, I've seen a whole bunch of other things, but just watching this movie, it still felt like its own thing.
The Videodrome, I don't think I mentioned Videodrome before, but that's another one too.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I've loved it. I thought that this was fun to watch, with a great relatable message, and the acting was phenomenal. Everyone just did 110%. Foley artists, prosthetic artists, lighting design, sound, everything. It was just great. So
oh man, you mentioning Videodrome reminded me of the scene where she pulls the chicken out of her belly button.
Oh my god.
And then we didn't even talk about the best scene in the movie where Demi Moore is watching the interview while cooking everything in the kitchen and just going nuts, like a witch origin story. Truly an incredible scene of this weird, and I like that she eats and she cooks and it's this weird thing when she is kind of free of the outside world. She becomes this insane person in front of a TV. She cooks the chicken and eats the bone and is killing. It's very fascinating.
And trashes the whole place and leaves it for Sue to clean up. It's yep, this is where we're
totally.
At. And just the every time they would call to either cancel it or be what's going on? They're taking too much time, and they're well, you're the same person, so you can control it. And it's oh god.
And every time she didn't cancel, I believed her.
Yeah. Right.
I wasn't well, this is just for the plot. No, I believed her.
Yeah. Just because of how they set it up. Yeah. That's great. But that's all I have. Producer Brian?
I said a lot of what I loved about this movie already. Again, this is also in my top 10 of the year, probably top 5 when as the year shakes out. Some other vibes it gave me. There were some Yorgos vibes in this, in places. It also felt like truly demented Wes Anderson in some places.
Oh yeah.
I just really enjoyed everything that this movie was doing, both symbolically and thematically. It just really worked for me. I thought that a lot of the imagery was this internal imagery, when they were connected, the tunnel aspect of things, the motorcycle, eggs and the heart, all of that stuff is an internal, the yolk of the egg. And I thought that was really cool. Something we haven't talked about yet is it's so interesting because the first half of this movie, the women say almost nothing. And it's all the men talking. Demi Moore, I don't think has a line until she's on the phone with them, outside of doing the TV show, not but one words here or there, things like that. And then halfway through this movie, it kind of switches where the women don't have a lot of line and the men have all the lines, to the women have kind of all the lines and the men are have some lines here or there, like the neighbor or Dennis Quaid, the stake, the shareholders, stuff like that. I thought that was so interesting because the confidence. Oh, this is going back to the dancing, the not sexy. What's sexy in this movie is the character's confidence. What's sexy is Demi Moore in the first workout video, where she's confident in what she's doing, and she comes off and she's like very and then she becomes less confident once she hears Dennis Quaid talking about her in the bathroom. Then what's sexy about the Margaret Qualley character is the confidence she has, like going into that audition or being on set the first day, but not the video itself, or
Yeah.
you know, like I think that was what was interesting. And once they started to lose that confidence, the beginning of the workout, but then the date, like you have that lack of confidence that ends up being devastating. And I think it's also fascinating that nobody cares that she doesn't have a last name.
There's like Sue, great.
Great. We love you.
Yeah. But that cooking talk show scene is like my favorite thing in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this idea of like filling the void in this movie. They may even say it at some point. They're trying to fill this void in themselves, but like literally a piece of her is being taken out and creating a full cavity of emptiness. And then she builds, first of all, I don't believe for 1 second that somebody would have designed that apartment and just like not use that space that she ended up creating for the body.
Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, like poor
How
architecture
did you
and layout.
that?
Yeah,
right.
But even like creating that like empty space, the fill the void, like all of that stuff is just very well done. All of the stuff at the end is great. All of everything we talked about is wonderful. Some of my gripes that are not real gripes are. It just seems irresponsible to give extra substance and not just enough for the shot. However, I think it was more than just it's not just a science experiment with testing. It was also a social experiment for whatever this mysterious company is, for sure. I wrote no lisp, and I don't know what that means.
No lisp.
I don't know why I would have written no lisp. Not important. Yeah, and I mentioned this before. The no agents, at first I was like, her agent would have had something to say about this. But just the idea that even though you're surrounded by people in our reality, doesn't mean you're with people. You're still alone. It's still you and your thoughts. So I thought that was nice to see. And then I think that this movie was awesome in every way. There's probably more stuff I could probably say, but we might get to it. I don't know. I have something else that I wanted to say, but I can't remember now. But yeah, great movie. Really, really great movie. I would love, from my lips to God's ears, I would love to see Demi Moore nominated and to me win, because this feels like we're due a horror winner for a woman
for
specifically.
Sure.
Like the last person to win for a horror movie was what's her name, Natalie Portman. Toni Collette didn't even get nominated for Hereditary, and I know that the Oscars don't like it. I understand the like history of the Oscars and horror movies, but this one feels super mainstream, more so than even Hereditary ever did. In terms of and Demi Moore is doing this type of a role that is not only like encompassing of her entire career, but the Oscars love to give away like these legacy Oscars in competitive categories. So I think this would like be awesome. In a perfect world, she and Margaret Qualley would be nominated like as one for the same Oscar, but Margaret Qualley would be in the supporting, is my assumption.
For sure.
But they're actually submitting this movie as a musical comedy for the Golden Globes to probably try and get Demi Moore like an actual win for something like this. But yeah, I loved this movie. There was something else I was going to say that's going to bother me until the end of time now, but that's okay.
You'll think of it.
Yeah,
just shout it out when you think of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I do hate that they have to change the categories, because that's the same with like Jordan Peele's like Get Out and submitting it under different things so that it can actually win awards. But it's like, just accept horror greatness. Like, it's just if it's a good movie, it's a good movie, guys.
Totally.
And if the acting's great, the acting's great. But now I want to see Demi in even more like horror movies. It's like, bring
Oh,
her out
yeah.
as another Scream queen. Like, you know, put her in Scream. Put her in one of the Screams. Great. So let's move on to our next segment. Brains.
Tasty.
Okay, so my first question, Jamie, is since we have so much media available to us glorifying how we quote unquote should look, how can we counteract those messages, especially because a lot of the times they're, subconscious. You're just scrolling through things and getting all these mixed messages about how you should look.
Just punch all the men.
I can get down with that.
I mean, you take boxing class for a reason.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
solely just to punch
Nikisha,
men.
please show me. I need some. Can we just record one episode where you just teach me how to fight?
I would love that so much. I will bring you
What's
gloves.
the Jennifer Lopez movie? Enough? Isn't she like a
Oh,
boxer?
that's my jam. I love that movie so much.
Well, also like huge trigger warning for intimate partner violence for that movie, but
yes,
I can't with J-Lo. We can't get into that.
Wait, I remembered one of the things I was gonna say.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I love that her eating is her trying to fill the void. Like she's empty, she's trying to fill it up. 2, I really like that you could see Demi Moore's or Elizabeth's as she's aging, her roots grow back in. I thought that was a small detail that I just really appreciated, that the body would be there and like still be like growing and whatnot. I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's very true because time is still passing. So it's like, yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Yes. Back to me teaching Jamie how to fight.
Yeah, I want to punch. I want to punch. Yeah. So start the Fight Club.
Got it.
I think like this is like something that is obviously really challenging for a variety of reasons, because like you really have to, if you want to change how you like feel about yourself and like perceive yourself and disregard, whether or not external messages are real or not real, like it's really about what you're putting into yourself. Like that is key. And in terms of like counteracting those messages, like it's not about toxic positivity, but it's about starting with things that like you believe about yourself and then like going from there. So I mean, affirmations are like a really helpful tool, one that I suggest and like work on with people all the time. And even if you're like, well, I don't have anything nice to say about myself, or I don't have anything like that I want to highlight, or like if you're really struggling with like body image, like it doesn't always have to, like, I think it's kind of rethinking what are the things that you want to affirm about yourself, that even if there's things that you are not enjoying about yourself, that there are still other things, even if it's one thing, but the goal is to like find something and like starting with that, and like truly like look at yourself, like look into your eyes in front of a mirror and like say these things to yourself, or like put post-its around where you're going to see them and like say, like speak these things about yourself to yourself, because if the relationship with yourself is strong and positive, that's your best defense against these messages. But again, you have to be like very vigilant, because I feel like so much of like, especially for like women, so much of these messages are really insidious and you're not always aware that you are like thinking this way. So you have to be like really, really careful about, how often you are like practicing this skill. It's a skill that like needs to be practiced regularly. But that, I would say, is a really like it takes a lot of work and time, but it is an effective tool in challenging a lot of those messages. And also like being aware of when you are starting to like think negatively about yourself, like what's happening, just like bringing awareness to like a situation that might be making you feel that way. And also like, I mean, I think a lot of people out there in the world are like lack empathy, self-absorbed, like all kinds of things. Like why do we want to give any of those people a space to say anything that impacts us in any way? like what's so special about them that like their voice is louder than your voice, like your literal voice within you, like why are we giving anybody else like amplifying these messages? So I
Yeah.
think like really thinking about like why does this bother us? I think a lot of times it comes from one's own like negative self-image and negative sense of self. And so hearing negative messages externally seem louder because you're already internally feeling less than or like really struggling with your like view of yourself. So I think coming to terms with that, recognizing that like you need to do the work on yourself to learn how to like have a better relationship with yourself, and it really quiets that noise from the people outside of you.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think a lot of people underestimate affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because in just spaces that I have spoken with people, it's like one of those like I can even describe it because my brain has stopped, but just one of those things that it's not hard to do, but it's kind of like how people feel about astrology sometimes. It's like so
Sure.
just like
It's like woo
out
woo.
of
It's totally woo
yes,
woo.
But
thank
I
you.
love
Yes.
the TikToks of like the parents having their like kids like say the affirmations in the the
Yes.
mirror.
Yeah. I think
Really
about
like
that
that.
as a parent.
Yeah, for
Like I
sure.
think
Mhm.
about I think about like how do I instill like positive self-image in my own child now? And like and it's so
Mhm.
funny because we've had these questions before about like, oh, but I'm not a parent, but like now I am a parent. So now I get to like put myself in this position of like, yeah, how do I actually facilitate that for my own child to
Right.
feel like to love himself in a way that like that becomes a louder voice in his head compared to like what anybody else might say about him or to him, or even if they don't, but like most importantly that like he has that positive relationship within himself.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
Es-
absolutely.
Especially cuz now like we have so much access to other voices, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like when we were growing up as kids and it might just be like our classmates or whatever, but now there's just so many outside voices that can really quiet, like you said, how we really feel about ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it is a practice of trying to get those affirmations, try to
Mm-hmm.
reiterate like who you are, just so that you're not falling into those traps. But yeah, I love those videos, especially when all the curly haired girls and their moms are like telling them like your curls are beautiful. I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
tears. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, but this also kind of ties into my next question. Why do you think outside validation seems to hold more weight in our minds than our own self validation? And I mean that as like twofold, because like you said, if we're already thinking negative about ourselves and then negative thoughts come towards us, it kind of feeds into that internal negativity. But
Mm-hmm.
also it's hard for when we're trying to do affirmations, like we don't believe it, but we will kind of believe it if someone else tells us we're worthy or
Mm-hmm.
good. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, why do you think that kind of outside validation just is weighs more heavily?
Good
Yeah.
question. Good question.
Good
Yeah,
question.
thanks.
Great question, actually.
Thank you.
No, I mean, I think it's connected to like what I was saying before, just about like, I think that if you are already viewing yourself as anything less than, then you're giving more power to like all of those other voices,
Mm,
outside of you. Um, I think that, I also think that, uh, there's something similar or like in the same vein of feeling like other people are more valid than you. So like
mm,
something else that I encounter a lot of the time is like one of my favorite tools is introducing the like what would you say to your best friend kind of thing, or like what would you say to like someone that you love, as a way to like take it outside of yourself, because we're more likely to give other people the benefit of the doubt, we're more likely to be kinder to other people, like all of these other like kindnesses that we never offer ourselves. And so like this I feel like kind of feeds into that, where those other voices are so much louder. If you struggle with self-criticism, anytime anyone critiques you, those critiques feel more like legit than anytime anyone ever compliments you. Like even
Mm-hmm.
that, like all of those, because again, like the self is already so critical that any evidence that feeds into that existing idea that like, oh well, like I'm not good enough because like XYZ, if anybody says anything that like fuels that thought, we hold on to that. We like pay way more like the spotlight is on those things, even if maybe let's say that happened like once and like every other day someone's complimenting you, but we like dismiss it, we minimize it, we ignore it because that doesn't fit into our like hypothesis that like we're not good enough, or like, you know, that there's more ways that we can grow, etc., etc. So like
Mm.
again, paying attention to like how much space are we giving to criticisms, to like negativity versus positivity versus like even neutrality? How often are we just like kind of okay with being neutral? So that's just like another thing that I know this all the time is like we are amplifying negative messages, especially if they fuel and feed into our own like negative perception of ourself. It just
Mm-hmm.
amplifies it so much more, and we will like dismiss and ignore anything that doesn't fit into that, even if it's positive. Like we will come up with every excuse as to why those aren't like good enough reasons. They're all outliers. Like, oh, okay, this bad thing happened to you once, but like the hundreds of times that something good happened to you is an outlier. Like the math ain't mathing. Like that doesn't even make any sense.
That's a
But
great
like
point.
again, our brains are like jumping through hoops to like validate it, even though it's not like that's where it's not based in reality anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we feel. We feel it so strongly that like we're willing to like not we're willing to believe something that like is probably not based in anything real. Like there isn't that much evidence for it because we like feel it so strongly.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's a great answer to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And so my last question is then your thoughts on how real change can happen in regards to like media accepting body positivity. Like what does that look like to you for us to be successful as a society with media like accurately portraying body positivity?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I have like a like an almost nihilistic thought of like,
Hmm.
will that ever in a capitalist society, can that really happen?
Real talk.
Because so many industries benefit from us feeling like shit about ourselves, that like financially they benefit from it. So like
Hmm.
what motivation do they have to to change the messaging? um so that's
Yeah.
my like I'm angry with the world thinking where
Oh,
my
I feel
brain
that
went
1,000%.
first.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yes.
It reminds me, this is like, again, I know I've gone on like 1,000 tangents, but there's this TikToker who is a comedian. And every so often she like pretends to be this like corporate board that's like, okay, fellas, like what's the next thing that we can like make women really insecure about?
Yes, I know
And
exactly
then
what
they're
you're
like,
talking about.
okay, what about like tiny little hairs on their
On your
face
face.
that they need to do something about? Like, yes, what do we do? They need razors to shave it off. Okay, but they already have razors. No. Maybe new tiny, very tiny, small razors that they can only use for their face, and that's the only way that they can get all the little hairs off their face. And they're like, yes, that's all. I think about these things all the time, where it's like, yeah, we like operate within this world where like everything that's making us feel like shit is like so intentional. Like look at like all the things that are like if we're talking about body image, all the things that
Mhm.
are marketed towards like health,
Right.
quotes, big quotes. Is it really all about health? No, it's about like how society hates fat people and are so like fat phobic that everything is then skewed under this idea that like it's all rooted in like, oh, this is like the healthy thing. It's not about that. It's about making
Mm-mm.
you feel badly about the way that you look, and like rooted in fat phobia in order to like make more money. And so how do we fix that? I don't know. Like, when do we start like what's the financial incentive towards like making people feel good? I know that there are some companies that like do, believe in like those ethics and values and like actually like create products and like are making money off of it in a positive way. But like
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the challenge of like, what kind of world do we need to live in where like the same value is being placed on body positivity, that leads to like other financial successes within our current society, that can like move the needle in that direction. And I don't
Yeah.
know I don't know if we're there, because they'll just keep making money off of our misery.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, look at like botox and um like lip injections and like all of that shit, and like so many
Mm-hmm.
things that like haven't really been studied until like more recently. Like, I've also started seeing all these images of uh like all the injectables like shifting in people's faces,
Yep.
because like now people have been doing it for long enough, and it's just all, I don't know, it's all really fucked up. I think that people I think people should do things that they want to do with and to their bodies that make them happy. But I also think like really think about like, what is it about this thing that makes you happy?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
agree.
like, think like, do the things that are going to like make you feel more in love with yourself. But also, is it like coming from this intrinsic desire to like really want that thing, or is it coming from some external pressure that like you have
Right.
to look a certain way? And you
Which,
don't need that, because you're great.
yes. And 99% of the time, it's the outside factors that are telling you that you need to
Yeah.
get this
But
or all these
also,
things.
on top of that, a lot of the things that feed on us feeling crappy about ourselves have expirations on them. So, like,
Mm,
Mm.
you go back for it. So it's compounding. Once you
yeah.
become a
Right.
customer, you keep
Mm-hmm.
coming back for the makeup or for the Botox or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, it doesn't actually make you feel better about yourself. It's a band-aid for something that is deeper. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore you keep going back to put that band-aid on and put that band-aid on, and you're spending and spending and spending. And your lifetime value as a customer for them is all they see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
That
I
being
agree.
said, I've thought about Botox, so somebody talk me.
For
Well,
what, Jamie?
don't
For
no,
what?
don't get Botox, because have I got a substance for you?
Oh God.
No, I will say that the one thing that has stopped me from like more seriously considering it is this is so silly, but as a therapist, if I can't like express myself with my face, I don't think that I'll be an effective therapist. So for now, the wrinkles will
That's a good enough
stay,
reason.
because that is how you know that I'm like, I'm connecting with you.
You're connected. You are a seasoned
Look at all
therapist.
these.
You have the wisdom,
I have the wisdom lines.
the
There you
wisdom
go.
lines. No, that is excellent. An excellent answer. Because I
I didn't even think I
agree.
answered the question. I was like,
No.
I'm mad. I'm mad about the state of the world, and here's why.
Well, I think it's because I'm in the similar boat that I'm like, yeah, Jamie, that's it. That's the answer. We're gonna fight all the people. Fantastic. No, but it's great. Your thesis statement of making sure that whatever you do is truly internally because you want it, I think it's like the nail on the head
Yeah.
and not
I
necessarily
because I
just because outside forces.
Yeah, these things aren't bad. Like, makeup isn't a bad thing. Like, do it like,
Right.
and none of these things, I'll say most of these things aren't like inherently bad things. It's really just like, I think thinking about, are you doing it because it brings you joy independently of like what other people think?
Hmm.
Because I think sometimes these things can, again, like, it's insidious. They're so deeply rooted in us that we're not always aware of what influence that comes from like outside of us that could be playing into why we desire some of these things.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Mhm.
1,001%. So do what you want to do for you, but not others. I love it. Great. That's all that I have for this. Should
Well,
we? Yes.
let's go back to the question Jamie had for
Oh,
you
yes.
about
Oh
like
yeah.
Yes.
Demi Moore taking on a role like this that is so deeply connected to very similar things that she probably went through in her career up and
Mhm.
coming, especially in the 80s, like, and 90s, like striptease, like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel like, how can you handle that? How can you separate the two? As an actress, how can you not keep yourself from going like opening up that trauma and those same things, and being able to, you know, come out of filming that movie and just like being okay?
Mm.
Yeah, I think it could be twofold because it could be cathartic in a sense to live out those emotions and fully process it, like have them released from you
Mhm.
doing this movie. Um, but I also would hope, well, one, that Demi also has a therapist, but two, that because of who she is, I kind of liken it to like Meryl Streep. It's like I don't feel like Meryl Streep is out there thinking like I got to be the youngest, hottest, and now I'm like an old fart, because her
Mm.
talent is speaks for itself.
Mhm.
And I think once we realize that our talent is our talent, that it doesn't necessarily matter about the looks, because like uh, even though this film is so meta, like that is another paycheck for Demi, and I'm sure she's fine with that paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
she is doing what she loves, acting, and she's making a living from it, and in a movie that is also too sending out a message about the absurdities of, you know, toxic body positivity. So even if it might be hitting close to home, I would hope that, or at least for me, if I was playing that role, I would be okay with the fact that I'm sending out this message about how crazy the industry is. And it's like, I have
Mhm.
experienced this. Here it is, just so that you guys, you know, can learn from it and realize how insane beauty standards in Hollywood are. And just to be attached to a film that has that message, I think that that would help me sleep better at night, you know, if that makes sense. So yeah, and also in that sense, also a paycheck is a paycheck. Like you get that money, girl.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Get
So,
your bag,
yeah.
please.
Get your bag. It's all good. Yeah.
One other thing I forgot to mention earlier is,
Mhm.
and this is so stupid, but something that I hate in movies, not to add this on a sour note, but something I hate in movies is, and I recognize you have to do it, is when they give you a phone number, it's the 555,
Mm.
and you know it's fake. That always pulls me out for that 1 second. I know it's
That's
so stupid,
It
amazing.
is
but
stupid.
but like when you see like, oh, what's your number? 555, and I'm just like, now I just reminded I'm not watching something. Like it just adds like a disingenuous fakeness to it, even though like
Mm,
I get it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't know. That's just a stupid thing. Also, wouldn't it have been cool if you created a real phone number that was just a line that was like, you don't need the substance, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Actually,
I don't know.
because
Anyway,
didn't they have that for like Art the Clown? There was like a phone number that you can
yeah, a lot of the
call,
movies do like
and
these interactive, like,
Mm.
things where,
I think Longlegs had it.
Longlegs had one.
oh, work.
Yeah, stuff like that. But anyway,
They're
that's
like, "My
that's a
legs
stupid
are
thing
long."
that I wanted to say, and I'm glad
That
I
just
got
also
to
reminds
say it.
me of like the songs from like the early 2000s who had like phone numbers in it. Like Alicia Keys had like a phone number in hers.
Mm-hmm.
And people would try to call it, and it would be like some random lady in Ohio just like have to change her phone number because
Yeah,
somebody
yes,
like
yes.
put it out there.
What's that?
But
Is it
anyway,
Soldier Boy who does that song where it's like 678
Mike Jones has
998
oh, probably.
Right?
I don't
Isn't that
remember. I
song?
remember Mike Jones had one.
Oh, it's Kiss Me Through the Phone. Through
Yes.
the phone. I was like, who? It is Soldier Boy. Okay.
Work.
678 998 212.
Isn't that what like Chris
I
Brown
never
or
called the
something?
number. 678 998 8212. 678. What area code is that? Sorry, you can ignore
No,
me. I'm just
now
doing
I
some
want to look
deep
up
diving.
phone numbers.
Oh, it's for Atlanta.
oh,
I
well,
like
that makes
that.
sense.
That's okay. So is this a real number?
They get approved for real phone numbers.
8212. Oh, that's That's not real.
Oh, wait, was you looking up now?
I typed in the wrong number.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. In 2008, American rapper Soulja Boy put the number 678-999-8212 in his single "Kiss Me Through the Phone." Thousands of fans called it. One family in the UK was bombarded with calls when fans forgot to put the area code in front of the phone.
Oh, sure.
Wow.
Right, and they're the right.
Wow.
Hilarious.
Anyway, that's it.
Don't call random numbers in movies and songs, folks.
Mhm.
Grand. Okay, should we rotten tomatin this?
Let's do
Rotten
it.
Tomatin.
Rotten tomatin.
All right.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? Nikisha, why don't you go first?
Oh, I want this to be high. I'm gonna say 91, but I feel like that's too high.
All right. Jamie.
I'm going high too. I'm going to say 94.
Okay. This on Rotten Tomatoes has a 90%.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
yay.
Good.
And the popcorn meter, which is the new name for the audience score, is a 74%.
Interesting.
And my assumption is that is due to the divisive ending of just going off the rails.
Yeah.
But the critics' consensus is audaciously gross, wickedly clever, and possibly Demi Moore's finest hour. The substance is a gasp-inducing feat from writer-director Coralie Fargate.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Love it.
Yeah.
Next up, what do you think this has on Letterboxd? As a reminder, this is 0 through 5 with decimal points. Jamie, why don't you start with this one?
I'm going to guess a 3-3.
Nikisha?
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 on the dot, 3.0.
This has a 3.9.
Wow. I was going to go higher, but the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes threw me off.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I don't know. I feel like I know nothing.
Well, know that we were right with the critics, so
Yeah,
we win.
that's fair.
Okay. Let's do the top 3 reviews on Letterboxd. At number 3. Yet the most unbelievable thing is that she built that secret room all by herself.
There you go.
I didn't read these. No, I number 2, very mindful, very Demi Moore.
Excellent.
That is
Excellent.
great.
And then number 1 is Mama, a Girl Inside You.
People.
Fuck, that's so good.
That is.
One of my favorite movie reviewers, his review is, my new favorite film of the year. The last 15 minutes felt like I was hallucinating. Like there was no way I was actually watching what I was watching.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
good.
Agreed.
Yeah, great. Cool. Let's do the 4 S's.
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to do skulls, which is about mental health and human behavior, 1 through 10. Scares, how scary was it? Shakes is going to stick with you. Can you shake it off? Is it one and done? And then we'll do suggestions. Jamie, why don't you start with your skulls, scares, and shakes?
Surely. For skulls, I gave this a 9.
Yeah.
I mean, this just is sad reality.
Sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of the choices that are being made, while the substance might not be real, that, like, you know, people do this currently. It's like, oh, what's a thing that I can do to, like, make myself be younger? Like all the other things we were just talking about. So
Exactly.
and like the self-hatred and all of that. and like all the men and how they act in this film.
Good.
Yeah, tomato,
We'll give you
tomato,
a thumbs
tomato.
down. Rain.
Are you trying to make the thing go?
Yeah, I was trying to make the thing.
For
hates me.
scares, I gave it a 3, but now I'm kind of rethinking if I feel like, I mean, here's the thing. This is just reality. And yes, reality is scary, but maybe I'm just so sadly used to reality that it's less scary. I don't think that like there's no jump scares in this, and like there are some like gruesome scenes, but again, I don't think that this is like the most like disgusting body horror that we've seen. And I just might be desensitized to our sad world.
Yeah, that's real.
And then for shakes, I'm giving this a 9. Because I just like I can't stop thinking about it. And how it makes me feel. It also like I mean, it makes me really sad because it makes me think about like how do I view myself and how like kind of what we were talking about earlier, like how do we prevent, these negative thoughts from like escalating further, and like what work do I have to do to like build a better relationship with myself to like not get to this point. And yeah, so I just like I keep thinking about this movie and how effective it was, and yeah, I think it's one of the best of this year for sure.
Yeah.
Nikisha?
Yeah, similar. I gave an 8 for skulls, a 6 for scares, just because nails and needles and all the things, and a 9 for shakes. I mean, I just still keep thinking about this movie. It's great.
Yeah. I gave it a 9 for skulls. I gave it a 5 for scares, and I gave it a 9 for shakes.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice.
Who wants to go first with suggestions?
I'll go because we already said one of mine, which was Carrie.
Mm.
But then it also reminded me of Jennifer's Body.
Sure.
And then of course our other favorite body horror movie that we covered, Titan. Titan.
I had that.
Yeah.
Jamie?
I had Titan. I think that's if we're like comparing body horror, I think that one's definitely more gruesome.
Yes.
I also would recommend The Thing.
Oh yeah.
For like some body horror stuff, but really I think another film that like really reminds me in terms of like women in the media in this way is Starry Eyes.
Sure.
Yeah. I need to revisit that movie.
Yeah, totally.
What about you, Brian?
The Fly.
Yeah.
I just think that I think Black Swan.
Yeah.
In some places, but I don't know. I would say just watch this one again.
Also that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm ready for it to stream for real again. So I can watch it again. Because I'm not keeping Mubi. Sorry.
Sorry, Moobs.
Sorry, movie.
Sorry, Mubi. Fantastic. Well, I think that ends our episode of The Substance. You can follow us on all social medias, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at Talk Horror Pod. And producer Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So YouTube, hi YouTube. You can also get podcasts like ours and exactly ours on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you. I don't know how should we end it?
Squelch. Squelch. Squelch.
Wow.
That was actually really good.
Wow. Good job.
I could be a Foley artist,
Brian.
There you go. That's a second income right there.
Great. I love it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.